Namaste. Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhedu Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandhakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today we will begin the revision of Mandukya and Karika, and I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun because we'll be less restricted in terms of the various mantras and shlokas that we will follow. Which should be done when you are first covering the text. So that should be done, and we did that. But now in the revision, we can be a little bit freer in terms of presenting the matter, not being restricted to a mantra by mantra translation. So for that reason, I think it'll be fun to do. I'm not quite sure how long this will take. Let us just see. That's another, I'm not putting any time limits on it. So let's just see how it goes, and we will see about it. So Mandukya Upanishad. And first of all, again, this is a revision. Upanishad, the word Upanishad means the one that allows you to see your reality very clearly, and there is no other way other than Upanishads to know this. No other way. This is kind of like it is a very tall claim that there is no other way other than Upanishads to make you see who you are really. What a beautiful person you are. There's no other way to do that other than Upanishad. This is a very tall claim, but a very valid claim, which has been time tested over thousands, millions of years, really. This is a special gift by Ishvara, where if you want total freedom, then you have to resort to the study of Upanishad. So the Atma Vidya, the Brahma Vidya, is not contained in any other place other than Upanishads. This is how important it is. And I won't go into the details, the etymological details about Upa, Ni, Sad. You can look at your notes for that. But that is what the Upanishad is. And oftentimes in our Shastras you will see Aupanishadam Brahma. So means that the understanding of Brahman, understanding of Atma, understanding of yourself is born out of Upanishad. This is what it is said. Aupanishadam. means one which is contained in the Upanishad. So this is the word Upanishad. It's a very important one. Everything else that we study, including Karika, including Bhagavad Gita, including the various Prakarana Granthas like Panchadashi and so on and so forth, simply explain the Vidya in the Upanishad. This is where the original Upanishad is. And the beauty of that is that the Upanishad, I wouldn't say that just the beauty, but the peculiarity of the Upanishad is that the Upanishad cannot be studied on your own. It will not have the effect. You can be skeptical about it, that no, I can do it. A lot of people, they just say, we don't need the Vedas. We can figure it out ourselves. Mistaken. Has never happened and cannot happen. The only way is to listen to the Upanishad from a person who has spent the whole life understanding what the vision of the Upanishad is. Through a live teacher. That's it. There's nothing else to do. This is what our Shastras say. It's not like I am saying it. So, oftentimes in our Shastras, people will say, this is what we have heard. They don't say, I say it. None of the teachers ever say, I say it. Because the I that is referring to is the Ahankara. And Ahankara cannot understand the beauty of the Atma, and the Atma by itself cannot talk. And so any statement which says, I said it, it is likely to be, not likely, it is definitely going to be wrong. So it is said, this is how we have Vyachi Chakshire, this is what we have heard. Heard means that this is the Sampradaya. Anyway, so that's the word Upanishad. Mandukya. So the Mandukya Upanishad is a very special Upanishad and a difficult Upanishad. It's an important Upanishad and a difficult Upanishad for the reason that I will go into that in a minute. And so in some cases the summary doesn't mean that I am just going to do everything in a very condensed manner. No, all I'm saying is that I'm going to be free to explain aspects of it that appear in my mind and could be some detailed as well. And we may not even have covered it before. And so this is the treatment of the revision that I'm basing myself on. And so the difficulty of the Mandukya Upanishad needs to be explained, and I will do that in a little bit later on. The importance of it is also not easily appreciable, except when you study the Sampradaya and you talk to people and see the prevailing wisdom as to what do they study and so on and so forth. So the importance is somewhat easier. The difficulty is not as easy to understand. Even the difficulty is difficult to understand. That's really what I'm saying. So the Mandukya Upanishad, so the Vedas consist of, at one time, hundreds of Upanishads, thousands of Upanishads. But at the current time, because a lot of the expression of the Upanishad has been lost because of the memory, because it was all based on, it was never written down, it was all based on memory. And so they say that Vyasacharya, who really rearranged the teachings of the Vedas from a Jnana-kanda standpoint into the 4 Vedas, as you know. And so there, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda and Atharva Veda was really just as a rearrangement for people to follow the wisdom of the Vedas in a structured form. Anyway, so there are at the moment maybe a couple of hundred, maybe 300 Upanishads that are available, out of which 108 of them have been well classified, and out of the 108 classified Upanishads, 10 of them are considered to be quote-unquote major Upanishads that should be studied by all of our serious students, committed students. And as you know, the reason for that is that all these 10 Upanishads were personally commented on by Adi Shankara. And so those are the 10 Upanishads. And the Mandukya Upanishad occurs in the Atharva Veda along with Mundaka and Prashna. These are the 3 Upanishads in the Atharva Veda. And Atharva is the rishi who compiled, with the help of Badarayana, the Atharva Veda, and in there is a rishi called Manduka. And so the Upanishad, this particular Upanishad is based on the teachings of, the revelations of this rishi called Manduka. And it's called Mandukya. The one belongs to Manduka is called Mandukya Upanishad. And so this is studied at, it's the importance of that is that it is studied at the very end of all the study of the Upanishad. Another importance of that is that it explains the pratika omkara, om, directly. A lot of other also refer to it, but this Upanishad talks about omkara in directly and in detail. So this is also called the Omkara Upanishad. And so that is another important of it. And we will go into the importance of Omkara later on. So for that reason also Mandukya is studied at the very advanced stage of the study, where hopefully you have actually covered the Vidya which is contained in Kena, Katha, Taittiriya, and of course, if possible, because of the voluminous nature of it, both Chandogya and especially Brihadaranyaka. Those are huge Upanishads. But those all should have studied to a certain extent, and if you do, then the study of Mandukya becomes that much more effective. It is also a Upanishad which is important, and because of its conciseness, because it is the essence of the essence. You see, the Vedanta is the essence of the Vedas. Essence means when you distill it in its core aspects, what is left there is called the essence. And so Vedanta by itself is called the essence of Vedas. That's the word Anta. Anta means here it is not the physical end of the Vedas, but the essential aspect of Veda is called Vedanta. Vedasya Anta. It's called Vedanta. And then the essential part, I wouldn't say part, but the essential aspect of Vedanta is in Mandukya. So it is the essence of the essence. And so in that sense it becomes very cryptic and difficult to understand. Now we can comment on the difficulty of understanding. The difficulty means not difficult to climb, but difficult to appreciate. It's an advanced appreciation. And why is that? Why is that? So let's go into that. So two aspects of the importance of the essential aspect of Mandukya and the importance of Mandukya. Two different things. So for that, I would like to refer to the very important example that we should all be extremely familiar with. We should be very conversant with it. Is the 10th man story in Upanishad, in the Vedanta. 10th man story, Dashamoham. And as you know very well, I'm assuming you know that really at one time a Shishya, a senior student of a Rishi in a Gurukulam, on a nice warm summer day on the banks of the river, was requesting the Guru to please have us cross the river to the other side where we have a forest. And they were all boys, because in Gurukulam the girls were not sent away from home, only the boys were sent away. So these are all boys and younger boys. So the Gurukulam takes anywhere from about 8 to 19, 18, 19 or so. My maternal uncle, my mother's older brother, so she had several brothers, one sister and several brothers, and one of her brothers was an older brother. He went to a Gurukulam. So my grandfather sent him. I just tell you how recent it is. Sri Raghubir. And so he spent, I don't remember exactly how long, but say about 10 years or so. And what a wonderful personality he turned out to be. I really spent a lot of time talking to him when I was young. And now I can recall his gentleness, his wisdom, and so on. So anyway, so these 10 boys were sent by the Guru to cross the river, and the Guru was not very confident about it. He says, you know, this is a very fast moving river, and I'm not sure that I can entrust all of you to really swim across. So one of the senior students basically told the Guru, listen, we have been practicing swimming on the edge of the river anyway, and I'm not asking everyone to go, but these 10 of us are good swimmers, and I think we'll be okay. So I'll take responsibility for it. And I can tell you this is not that this is a doable thing. The Guru was reluctant, but he finally said, okay, all right, if you say so, you can do so. So all of a sudden this senior student already now had a sense of responsibility, that I have all these other people who are with me, and I want to make sure that I promise the Guru that I will be safe and I better take care of them. So he was worried already. He had a certain concern in his mind from that point on. They went and crossed the river, and then just to be sure, the senior student started to count everyone to make sure that we have not lost anyone. And he counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And he says, where is the 10th person? I can't believe that we were 10 when we started. How come I can only count 9? And so then he started counting in other direction. He asked everybody, and these younger kids they're saying, I don't know. These are who we are. I don't know who's missing. We don't have no idea. This turned into a crisis for this person. Imagine that you lose a person to this tragedy. How can you face your guru? What will happen to yourself? The amount of sorrow was amazing. And he started crying and he started to hit his head against a tree. And just then, this sadhu was passing by and he could see this commotion. All the other young kids were very silent. And he asked, what's the problem? What's happening? So he says, sir, we won't want to tell you. He says, no, but I really want to know. So he says there were 10 of us, and then we crossed the river, and unfortunately one of them has washed away. So he says, really? There were 10 of you? So this sadhu, this wise sadhu, started to internally count all of them, and he found there were 10 of them. So he says, this is all the problem that you have, nothing else? So he says, isn't that enough, sir, that we have lost a person? So he says, I tell you what, I have found the 10th person. And please stop crying. I will explain to you how the 10th person has been lost. And he says on one condition, all of you stand in a straight line next to each other and you follow my counting. And the senior-most student was at the very end. He says, all of 9 of you stand there. So he says, okay, you're with me? 1, 2, like that. He went up to 9. And then he told the senior student, you are the 10th person. You forgot to count yourself. And even before this, so this is the important thing about the story that we should understand. Even before, when he had done this counting, the senior student seemed very relieved that there is a person who is very wise and kind and reliable. So this is what is called Apta Purusha. Apta Purusha means one who knows, who seems to know what he's talking about. He's not some flighty person. He says, no, I think I can figure it out. Nothing like that. He says, I know. I found the 10th person. So already with that statement that I have found the 10th person, Dashamaha Asti. So in Sanskritam, Dashamaha means the 10th, Asti means is. Just from that statement, the sorrow of the senior student had diminished a lot. He had already wiped out all the tears with the help of a cloth and like this, and he was expectant and so on. But he did not have a positive joy yet. He had the absence of negative dukkha, sorrow. He had the absence of dukkha, but he did not have the positive joy, ananda, yet. But when he said, oh my God, I am the 10th person, when he realized that with the help of the guru, of this sadhu, not only did he have the absence of the negative dukkha, but he has some positive joy. You can imagine his relief and his joy. and his sense of, my gosh, how could I have made that mistake? I cannot believe it. So there it was, Dashamaha, not Dashamaha Asti, Dashamaha Asmi. So I took some pains, several minutes to explain this to you, for explaining the difficulty and the potential of studying Mandukya. With this background, just spent several minutes pointing out, let us see the understanding of Mandukya in particular. All the Upanishads in general, but Mandukya in particular. Okay? So, the Upanishads in general use the following method to explain the presence of Brahman. Brahma Asti. Just like this sadhu said, Dashamaha Asti. Brahman Asti. So what that means is that there is some order in the universe. There is a person who is in charge of the universe. A person in whom the whole universe resides. There is a certain content of the whole universe, including you. You are also, your body, mind, etc. is also part of the universe. So the entire universe is contained in this Brahman. They are nothing but the forms of this Brahman. Brahman is the Karanam, and all of the Jagat is the Karyam. Just like you have gold as the Karanam and the ornaments as the Karyam, similarly there is Brahman who is there in all of the creation, never disappearing. You cannot have a Jagat without Brahman. This is the method which is used in almost all the Upanishads. Right off the bat. Not right off, leave aside the right off the bat. I'll come to that later on. But all the Upanishads use this method. What method? First you convince yourself by saying Brahman Asti. There is in fact an order in the universe. There is a content of the entire one, and everything belongs in Brahman. This is the method used. So by doing this, our sense of distrust of the world, our sense of being lost in the world, not understanding what is going on, diminishes. Just like the 10th man, his sorrow was diminished. Why? Because it seems like this person who was talking knew what he was talking about. So therefore also the study of the Upanishad gives us some hope, some trust that things are going to be okay. My problems are solvable problems. See, that's the thing. The problems of my life are not unknown to people, to these teachers, and they are telling me this is very solvable. Just wait. We'll be okay. You're going to be okay. So this also becomes a great relief to us. This is the method which is followed in all of the Upanishads, different Upanishads. Okay? And so in summary, what does it mean? That the Upanishads in general follow this method, that Brahman is the Karanam, Jagat is the Karyam, and therefore the Brahman Asti. You should see this for yourself, be convinced of it, and relax in this knowledge. This is the method of the Upanishads. Now comes Mandukya. So in a nutshell, Mandukya uses a different methodology for understanding. The other Upanishads uses the methodology Brahmanasti, that you just see that whatever you see around in your experiences, they in fact have a basis, as I mentioned before. Now comes Mandukya. In Mandukya, the method is different. The method is... So one thing before I explain this, when you say that Brahman is the Karanam and the Jagat is the Karyam, is the effect, in effect what you mean is that Brahman is Satyam and Jagat is Mithya. Right? So we know all this. I won't have to spend a lot of any time on defining Mithya and so on. But it is just like saying that since the ornaments are all Mithya, gold is the Satyam. So that may not be apparent to us. At least now I can understand the gold and the ornament simile. But it is not yet apparent that this whole Jagat is also like that. But this is what the Upanishads point out, and with their help, I am able to slowly see, yes, this is in fact the case. If I don't see it, at least I have Shraddha that I will see it. This is the way it is. So the Mithyatvam of the Jagat is with respect to this example of the clay and the pots, or the gold and the ornaments. What is Satyam, what is Mithya, right? Okay. Let's go back to Mandukya. Mandukya uses a slightly different method. That method is, whatever you experience is Mithya. Whatever you experience is not true. Mithya means not really true. Not really true. So Mithya here, of course, saying Mithya means that it is not independently true. It is dependently true. So an ornament has dependence reality, not independent reality. Gold in that example has independent reality. Similarly, Mandukya says, all experiences are Mithya. And part of the definition of Mithya, as it is in both other Upanishads as in Mandukya, it is dependent reality. What that means is that even though the Mithya itself does not have independent reality, it is based on some other independent reality. This is what the definition of Mithya is, isn't it? And he expresses it, it explains it by saying, please see that all your experiences are Mithya. And by virtue of seeing this fact that all your experiences are Mithya, please also see that all your experiences depend upon you who is the Satyam. And so here when you say experience means anything that you can visualize, anything that you can objectify, anything that you experience is mithya. So what this means is that even my own personality, my body, my thoughts, they're objectified. They're experienced. Don't you say that, oh my gosh, I have a pain in my neck. When I got up this morning, I had pain in my neck. I don't know, it wasn't there last night. I must have slept funny. So the pain in your body is also experienced. It is objectified. Similarly, your mind is objectifiable. I feel good, I don't feel good, etc., etc. I'm disappointed, I'm happy. Mind. So the entire set of experiences is mithya. And because of the definition of mithya, it means that it is dependent on something else. It is never apart from something else. So now we can close the loop on the example of the Dashamaha. In the Dashama example, the cessation of sorrow by this wise person saying, this is called Abhaya Mudra. Remember, this is the Abhaya Mudra. So this is please come to, this is called the Abhaya Mudra. So there are various mudras. And so here he says, please come to my Sharanam and I will protect you. You're going to be okay. So this kind of a mudra was displayed by the sadhu saying, I have figured out your reason for your sorrow and I have a solution. So this is a cessation of dukkha that occurs with an understanding of this is Brahman, this is Mithya, this is Jagat, this is that. Mandukya, on the other hand, says, Dashamaha Asmi. Not Asti. So the potential of the difficulty and potential of Mandukya is now to be appreciated. Why? Because, first of all, the potential should be appreciated. The difficulty will deal with in a minute. The potential should be appreciated because if you see this fact, nothing else, if you see this fact, comma, you are not just going to be seizing your dukkha, you will have some very positive ananda. Why? Because it is not Dashamaha Asti, it is Dashamaha Asmi. Similarly, this is not Brahma Asti, it is Brahma Asmi. That is Ananda, that I am not what I thought I was. Because in the case of this 10th person, what he thought he was a sorrowful person. an untrustworthy person. He almost wanted to commit suicide because he could not face his guru again. This is what he thought he was. He also thought, I am not there as part of this whole thing, avidya. So this is what he was. When he found by a simple completion of arithmetic and a mistake on his part, his ananda is unlimited. Oh my God, I can't believe. Wow. Similarly, if I understand the premise and the promise of Mandukya, that all your experiences are not worth worrying about. Why? Because you are the Satyam. And the understanding of Satya means the one which is independent of all changes. One who is self-existing. All those kinds of meaning of the word Satyam, if that is appreciated, there is no bigger gain than that in any of the possibilities. Any of the past, present, future. You look at the gains of people who are trying to become, who are fighting for elections, people who are invested money, no matter what kind of an action you have, nothing compares to what a person will get if you understand this fact. So this is the potential. Now let us look at the difficulty. Why this is a difficult Upanishad? Because the trust and Shraddha towards understanding Brahmanasti is not easy, not straightforward, not trivial. I shouldn't even use the word easy or difficult. It is not that. It is relatively easy to appreciate if one has the Shraddha. Let us put it this way. But the gap between Brahma Asti and Brahman Asmi, which is what the vision of the Mandukya is. Actually, I am overstating this. It's not as though the other Upanishads lead you to a different conclusion. But here's the situation. The other Upanishads make, if I can give this analogy, the steepness of your journey is tolerable. It does it slowly, one step at a time. One Upanishad, every Upanishad that you study, every person that you study with and so on, slowly improves your understanding and your Shraddha that Brahma Asti, Jagat Mithya, etc., etc. And you slowly become. And then at the very end he says, please understand that Brahman, who is the very Jagat Karanam, includes you. And so it's not just the Brahma Asti, but Brahma Asmi also. And so it is a slow climb to the same objective that Mandukya is doing. But Mandukya, it's kind of like, you're, again, be careful about this analogy because, so for example, sometimes it happens when we were younger, you had to climb a mountain. And you have a couple of ways to climb. One is that there are some safer paths around the mountain that slowly get you up to the top. But once in a while you'll find a youngster who's brave enough and skilled enough to say, I don't have to go through all of that, I'm going to go straight up. So the Mandukya is like that. It is in fact a steep climb. Why? Let us understand this very carefully. This is important to understand. The difficulty is yourself. You are the problem. As Swami Dayanand used to say that, it was one of his, Swami Dayanand was very fond of, very skilled at presenting the tenets of the Upanishad statements in a very, very nice way. Like, for example, his very statement, there is not one God, not multiple gods, there is only God. So it's not as though Swami Dayanand was the first one to appreciate this, no. But the way he expresses it was remarkable. This is a good way to understand. People will say, in Christianity we have one God. In Islam we have one God. But Hinduism has so many gods. Why? So they just dismiss Hinduism as some kind of a pagan religion. So we say it's not as though there is one God or multiple God, there is only God. The Upanishads also say it, but Swamiji had a wonderful way of really expressing this in a language. Similarly, Swami Dayanandji used to say, you are the problem, you are the solution. And I remember, when I was a student, I was a very, very fond of taking notes. So I had already gotten into the habit that I would really just not even be looking at the teacher except once in a while. But my ears were glued on to the words of the teacher, but I'm writing all the notes. Voluminous notes. So much so that in Piercy one time, I was just talking about that to the other day, I had my whole arm from overwriting became so painful that I had to consult a special doctor for doing that. And he figured out, he says, okay, I think you are using your writing muscles too much, but I didn't want to give it away. So I went to an acupuncturist and she cured it to me. It was he, sorry. In San Francisco, I drove all the way from Piercy for 2 or 3 treatments, and because, of my writing. Anyway, I used to write a lot. And so this statement, you are the problem, you are the solution, I didn't understand it, but I wrote it down. Because I have complete Shraddha, whatever Swamiji is saying, it must be true. Slowly I am discovering the truth in the statement. You are the problem, you are the solution. So now we can close the introduction to Mandukya. Mandukya has enormous potential, but enormous problem. Enormous difficulty. Why? Where is the difficulty? What's the problem? You are the problem. Why am I a problem? Because you have so convinced yourself that I am just this poor jiva, burdened with my life, with problems, I'm struggling and so on and so forth, and I've got this aging body which is disintegrating, and my mind cannot really concentrate, and I cannot do anything, and I have not been that successful in my life yet. And what is all of a sudden you're telling me that I am the very cause of the whole universe, and I am free, and I am Parameshwara, and so on. I don't even listen to it. And if I listen to it, it just goes from one ear and goes out of the other ear. It doesn't register. This is my problem. I don't listen. I don't absorb it. So now we can close the discussion on Mandukya, why this is such an important Upanishad, because it dares you to see that you are free. It gives you some pithy arguments, very appropriate arguments, truthful arguments, to help you see, and it knows that unless you are an exceptional person, it will be a while before you will wake up. It is like someone who is deep in slumber, unable to really wake up to it. Not because you are already not a waker, but you are covering up your wakingness by sleep. This is the difficulty. And so it is far easier for us to listen to Brahmasti, than to directly go and see Brahmasmi. In that manner you can see why the study of Mandukya is delayed until someone has already thought a lot about Brahma Asti. And in fact, going back to the same example of the 10th man story, it's beautiful. It's a very important example, one that we should keep in mind all the time, and we have. Another aspect of that is the insistence of the sadhu to be on a straight line. This is very important. Why? Because supposing you have this situation where all these 9 or 10 students have scattered all over. Somebody is sitting behind a tree. Somebody is lying down face down. Someone is sorrowful. Others are not sorrowful. You have all these kinds of things. And the sadhu will have a hard time saying, you are the 10th person, when he has to say, okay, that's number 1, right? And that person behind the tree, that is number 2. And in the meantime, the doubts can come up that, has he counted this properly? Therefore, the sadhu says, I'll reveal it to you who the 10th person is, but on one condition. You all come here and stand in a straight line right in front of me, shoulder to shoulder. There is no ambiguity by saying, number 1, everybody? Yep, number 1. 2, everyone? Yes. You cannot escape by having any doubts. So similarly here, the study of Mandukya means that you should have studied a lot of other, if not all of them, but quite a few of them. That is just like lining them up. Because it is very consistent to what the other Upanishads are saying. But it directly takes you to Brahmamasmi. And the Brahmamasmi cannot happen unless the Brahma Asti has been very carefully counted in all other cases. Anyway, So that's the kind of an introduction to Mandukya. And then of course I can end by saying that because it is concise, well contained, explains the Omkara and explains the basics of who you are by taking the 24-hour, which is a very important, from one sunrise to another sunrise. Your entire world is included. Every possible type of experiences are included. 24-hour is a very important time period where it shows. It's like Ishvara showing the variety of experiences all in 24 hours. It doesn't take you, there are some variations from day to day, but the essence of that is all in one day. And this is what Mandukya is pointing out. It says, please see the Omkara. Omkara means the entire variety of experiences are all contained in this symbol called Om. And so that study requires an introduction by the other Upanishads. And even then it is not enough. So what needs to happen is some person who sees the truth of it so clearly has to help us understand the cryptic message of the Mandukya. And that is Gaudapadacharya ji, who is a very important link in the expression of Vedanta in our parampara. And he being Shankaracharya's guru's guru, is so well respected that his work, which is called a Karika, which is an independent verse-oriented text. It is not a translation of Mandukya, mind you, because a translation of it's also not a commentary on Mandukya. See, so they understand this. Bhashya is a commentary. Tika is a commentary. And just English translation is a translation. So the peculiarity of that is that it has to keep the text intact and simply explain it. A Karika is different. A Karika is a separate work in verse form that keeps in mind what the Mandukya is trying to communicate. So it expands the vision of the Upanishad, but in an independent way. And this is why the Karika holds a very special place in the annal of our literature, and so very well respected, so very well quoted, and so very well composed. And there's only one Karika in the entire. This is why the honor of it is not two Karikas. Only one Karika on Upanishads. There is a Sankhya Karika, which is a different school of thought, but there's only one Karika, which is the Gaudapada Karika. And that's why the cryptiness, the cryptic nature, not cryptiness, but cryptic nature of the Mandukya, the difficulty of the steep climb of the Mandukya has to be expanded, and he did that. And so this is a introduction to Mandukya Upanishad. And so with that, we will go through the structure of the Mandukya, and then very briefly, there's I think 215 verses of the Karika. We naturally not go through any of them in detail, just a few of them, just to point out the overall picture. So let us see how it goes. And with that, I close the class and we'll continue it next week. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahisha Go Brahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyah Prithvi Sasya Shalini Desho Yam Shobharahitaha Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaha Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurmamritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Alright, let me see if there are any questions. Good. I think with Swami Tattvavedanandaji's class, there are several people that are not able to come to this class, which is okay. But good to have you all here. I don't see any questions that you have that I can answer. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Om.